Thank you. Good to see you. Thank you for coming. This morning, we heard quite a number of views from members of Afghan civil society, women and men, who provided us and the special envoys who participated in Doha 3 with valuable insights on the rights of women and minorities in the country, girls' education, the media, business, and many other issues. They shared their views and perspectives on the Doha process, as well as on engagement between Afghanistan and the international community generally. Now, our exchange was extremely important and useful, and you may recall that at Doha 2, we had extensive discussions as well with a broad range of voices. We had civil society at a side meeting there. This morning, we heard a diversity of views, and Afghan civil society is not monolithic. This wealth of perspectives must continue to be a part of this process. And as I said at the meeting this morning, and as I said in talks with the de facto authorities, there really is a need to build trust on all sides. And we have to have a dialogue that's built on honesty. It's got to be based on principles, those of the UN Charter, and the various human rights treaties that Afghanistan is a party to. And we're still at the beginning of this process. We're going to need patience, a lot of it, and we're going to need to be realistic. It's a process that's based on the independent assessment that the UN Security Council recognized last November. The assessment called for a more coordinated and structured process with clear conditions and expectations from all sides. It also called for a principled, step-for-step approach with a clear understanding of the outcomes and commitments from all sides. Now, human rights, and especially the rights of women and girls, and inclusion of all members of society, will continue to be an integral part of our discussions. Regarding what's next, as I mentioned yesterday, during the talks with the special envoys and the de facto authorities, there was a discussion of creating smaller groups on key issues that are raised in the independent assessment, and we're continuing that discussion on how to proceed forward. We're still at the beginning of this process, and it's going to take time and patience, but really our approach has one goal, and that's helping all the people of Afghanistan. So thank you again, and I'm happy to respond to any questions. Excuse me.
Thank you so much, Mr. Carlo, for this briefing and yesterday's briefing. My question is regarding the participation of member states at the meeting today. A large number of countries didn't turn to participate in today's meeting and meet with the civil society representatives. What do you make of that? They said this is an important meeting and it wasn't part of the official meeting that took place in the past 2 days. Do you agree? And also, some people from Afghanistan and the diaspora community are saying that the people who participated from Afghanistan, either by Zoom or in person, are following the same agenda as the Taliban. Do you agree with that? And do you have anything to share with us? Thank you.
Well, thank you. First of all, I think there were a fair number of member states there. Some had travel arrangements and had to leave early. The attendance is optional. The attendance at the Doha 3 is optional. So I know there were, as I said, there were a fair number of countries there who asked some very good questions of the civil society members who were participating in terms of whether these individuals represented Taliban views or not. Look, they represented themselves, and they were very clear that they were representing themselves. I think, as I said, it's not monolithic. There's a variety of views. I don't think there's a difference for many of us, whether it's the envoys, the civil society members who were there about an end state. There may be different views on how you get there, but I think it was a really rich discussion. We heard a lot of different perspectives. I mean, we had people from the business community, from private sector, from the press, from women's organizations, from business organizations, microfinance organizations, and it was a very, very interesting and I think quite a rich discussion. Look, were they upset? Obviously, I think that civil society, many would like to be at the official meeting, but they were pleased to have the opportunity to speak with some of the envoys and explain what they are doing and what their needs are. It's important for us to understand what is it that various groups need. What are the obstacles to their truly either practicing their profession or what do they see as obstacles for a society that's more inclusive, etc. And we got that perspective. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Thank you, madam. Will the what is discussed today, it will be shared with the de facto government? One, how many countries today appear? And how about the members of civil society? How many, what them? Physically present as well as the virtually voting.
Okay, I'm not going to get into how many were there physically or not physically. We had, I think, 8 representatives or eight members of civil society who were there. In terms of the number of countries,
at least 15 countries in the EU.
Okay, 15 countries in the EU. I don't think the EU will mind that we mentioned that they were there. And we had different counts. So everyone just was sort of counting a little differently, but it was 15, 16 reps who were there. And again, we understand that some had to leave because of pressing business. I know one in particular who very much regretted that he could not remain for another day. But again, this is not something that we don't mandate people coming to either Doha meetings or civil society meetings or any other meetings. It was something we wanted to have as a possibility for the envoys to engage. No, when the discussion was within us. I mean, we're not even sharing. I mean, we're not sharing it beyond. I mean, people came on their own behalf and expressed their views, and we really appreciated it. And I think we learned. Quite a bit, actually. Yeah.
Thank you for giving me the chance to ask a question. I'm Nasser Ahmadi from DW Germany, Afghanistan service. Okay. My question is that we talked to the Taliban delegation and they said that there were meetings with the UN official were based on counter-narcotic, on banking and supporting of the private sector.
Mm-hmm.
And regarding the girls' education and inclusive government and human rights, they said that it's our internal issue and we will solve it in our country according to Sharia, based on their interpretation from Sharia. And also they say that we will solve it according to our tradition. Do you think that such big issues could be the internal affairs and could be solved in Afghanistan?
Okay, let me just explain that. First of all, we had a general session that encompassed kind of the range of issues that were raised in the independent assessment that was done. And then we had 2 special sessions, one on private sector and the other on counter-narcotics. We felt we had to start somewhere in getting into the nitty-gritty of what the obstacles the de facto authorities see, for example, in developing the private sector, and hear from the envoys on what they think could be done. So that's one. In the general session and throughout, issues of human rights, especially of women and girls, were raised. You can't speak about the private sector without talking about having women and more women in the private sector, right? It is not just, let's say, a right of a woman to work, but if 50% of the population is not working, that's pretty bad for a country's economy. Let's be perfectly clear here. In terms of counter narcotics, obviously the issue of women was also raised. We have alternative livelihoods. There were some women who were growing those crops. It wasn't just men. We have women addicts that need to be treated. And this is an issue that absolutely has to be raised. Our goal here is to go issue by issue in the independent assessment and cover those issues in a process that will take time. And human rights and rights of women and girls factor in all of them. The issue of inclusivity is a really important issue. And it's inclusive in that. It's not just inclusive governance, it's also inclusive aspects in the society. And that was raised as well. And that will be raised, I think, in subsequent meetings as we go along. Is it just an internal issue? Okay. Afghanistan has signed on to a number of treaties, international covenants, agreements that are focused on human rights, civil rights. They are bound by those agreements. It doesn't matter that a government changes. The country has signed on as a country. So in that sense, it is not just an internal issue. And we made that clear. Okay.
It's me again, Mariam Ramadi, Afghanistan International News Channel. There were a lot of talks and criticism, again, about the secrecy of these 3 meetings, 2 officials and 1 side event. About today, the name of the participants didn't come out and they tried to not reveal the names and who is participating. Just to clear some minds and also some people who are criticizing this, can you just give us a quick explanation why these people didn't want to actually their names to come out or introduce themselves, and the whole secrecy about these events, why it's so important for details to not come out of these events?
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Well, we respect the privacy of participants in any of our meetings, whether it be on Afghanistan or any issue. And certainly we don't release names of people we meet with, particularly if they would prefer that they not be released. And I think that is something that we need to continue as an issue. And if they want themselves to maintain or say to the press or anyone else that they were a part of it, then that is certainly their prerogative. But that's not something that we do, and this is not just on Afghanistan. Our meetings, when we meet particularly with members of civil society, are closed meetings. And we're not hiding anything, but we want to have good discussions and have any participant feel very comfortable. So, yeah.
Thank you so much, Sarah Zaman with Voice of America. So this time, given the criticism of, having a separate meeting with Taliban and meeting separately with civil society activists, it seems as if, the Taliban are not going to agree in the future also to sit with anyone else. They've made it very clear in these 2 meetings that you have held in February and now. Would the UN again consider repeating this exercise the same way? Or would you, for future meetings, then consider changing the format so that UN does not receive the type of criticism that it has, because the Taliban would not sit with civil society activists. It's quite clear.
Yeah, well, I would never say never. Okay, I think we'll see as we go forward how we're going to manage this issue. I think it's a decision that not only we have to make, but also those who attend, the envoys who attend, on whether they think what they think who should be present, if you will. All we want to be able to do is to continue to speak to everybody and have everyone's voice heard. And if we can amplify voices that are not, let's say, present at a particular event, we are very happy to do that. But again, I would never say never. The one thing I just want to emphasize is that if you read the independent assessment, it comes up with a number of the concerns that Afghanistan has to build its society. It comes up. It also lists many of the concerns that the international community has, where the international community feels that Afghanistan is not abiding by its international obligations. A lot of thematic issues. Then at the very end, talks about eventually needing an inter-Afghan dialogue. What we are doing is not an inter-Afghan dialogue right now. We're just going through issues at this point, and we want to get various perspectives. But let's be perfectly honest. The citizens and the de facto authorities are not ready for sitting down at the table with each other. At least they weren't for this past meeting. I'm sorry. Yeah. Sorry about that. Thank you. Yeah, that's right. Yes. Thank you. And thanks for the interest that you have in this process. Thank you.